Right, not sure how I'm going to manage to stroke the cat, eat the chocolate, drink the coffee and read, but I'm sure we'll manage it somehow. Right, we take a first slurp. Oh, delicious. Do excuse me if I need to pause momentarily just to have a little slurp of coffee. Right, page 255, chapter 24, V is for victory. Okay, here we go. It had never been the refugees' plan to stay long in Budmouth Pier Point. Although in the end they'd got a warm welcome here, our country's immigration laws were not so friendly. Without official visas, the Jews were termed enemy aliens, which to me sounded like more nasty name calling. Technically, it meant they weren't supposed to be here. Over the following days, a few more of the refugees left. Mr. Geffin headed to Canada, Miriam and Reuben, Elsie and Jacob for America. Realistically, I knew it wouldn't be long before Esther and Dr. Worth went on their way too. Meanwhile, knowing Suki was still on the other side of the channel made missing her even harder. German-occupied France was a dangerous place, and no one had heard from her. No one could get hold of her, though Miss Carter, still blaming herself, tried every possible avenue. I think she even considered sending a pigeon. Let's go to the next page. I felt hopeless because there was nothing I could do. It was unbearable to think that we'd come this far and Suki might not make it home safely. Yet much as I adored my sister, I was beginning to understand Mum's view too. Suki was brilliant, but she wasn't necessarily careful. The fact that she travelled all the way to France, then missed the boat home, was a rather good example of it. Yet as much as Suki was careless, she was brave and resourceful, so we shouldn't have been surprised when she eventually found her way back to us in the manner that she did. One morning, as often was the case, I woke very early. It was soon after Cliff had come out of hospital. Not strong enough to face the lighthouse ladder yet, he was staying at Mrs. Henderson's with Mum, and I'd not quite got used to having the bedroom to myself. I read all my books from home countless times, and the ones on the shelves above our beds. Knowing I'd not be able to get back to sleep, I decided to go for a walk. "Come in, girl," I whispered to Pixie, who was stretched out on Cliff's bed. She opened one disinterested eye, which I took to mean no. Pulling on a cardigan over my nightgown, I grabbed my coat and shoes as I tiptoed down the stairs. Outside, it was just getting light. There was no one about, only gulls circling the harbour, which was always a sign of fishing boats were due back soon. For once, there wasn't even a breeze. The sea was flat, silky looking, and the same pinks and blues and oranges as the sky. Dropping onto the beach, I started walking. I'd not been down here since the refugees arrived, and the crunch of shingle underfoot brought back to me vividly the drama and panic of that night. Only 12 refugees were left in Budmouth. It was mid-March now, which meant they'd been here for almost a month. They'd settled well. In a way, it felt like they'd always lived here, and on a day like today, when the sea was kind and the sky bright, it was easy to forget anything bad or dangerous had happened. It was easy to forget that anything bad or dangerous had happened was still happening across the channel in Europe. At this time of day, the tide was a long way out, making the beach seem wider and flatter than usual. Before long, I'd reached the groin. And the groin, in case you were wondering, those are the big sort of almost like fences that you have on beaches where you can sometimes stay out of the wind. They're sort of like every section, about the width of a football pitch. So before I'd reached the groin, where I'd stopped to gaze out to sea, I heard the engine first, a chugging, spluttering that for a split second made my heart stop. But boat engines, I was learning, sounded different from aeroplanes. The boat rounding the headland was the first of the fishing fleet to arrive to harbour. You could tell the catch was good from the way the hull sat low in the water. It passed close enough to shore for me to see the men on board laughing and joking with each other. One of them waved to me, a proper, gleeful, two-armed wave above his head, and it made me smile as I waved back. By the time I reached the harbour again, the fishing boat was already moored up. The men had unloaded their nets and were stacking boxes of silvery fish on the quay. It was an impressive, delicious sight and got me thinking about mackerel on toast for breakfast. So I wasn't paying a huge amount of attention when someone called out, "Olive, is that you?" I froze to the spot. I'd have known that voice anywhere. "I can't believe it," she cried. It stunned me. I couldn't believe it either, but there was no mistaking who it was. I didn't even get a proper look at her. She threw herself at me with such force that we both fell backwards against the cobbles. The person holding on to me was soaking wet and terribly in need of a bath. I didn't care. I clung onto her so tight as she clung to me. "I saw you on the beach," Suki mumbled against my neck. "I was on the fishing boat waving." She was sobbing and laughing all at once, and so was I. When at last we pulled apart, I looked at her properly and thought for one awful moment there'd been a mistake. This wasn't my sister at all, but a stranger. Last time I'd seen her, she had curled hair, face powder, lipstick, the works. Now she was wearing trousers, a man's tweed jacket with a woolly hat pulled down over her hair. "I'm not looking my best, am I?" Suki joked feebly. It didn't matter. None of that silly stuff mattered. "I'm just so glad to see you," I whispered. "Me too," she said, cupping my face in her freezing cold hands. How I managed to say. There was so much I had to ask her, I didn't know where to start. The fishermen had stopped unloading their catch to watch us. It was funny how they gazed at Suki as if she was their favourite long-lost daughter. One of them called out, caught more than fish today, have we?" I recognised him. He was the man who'd argued with Queenie about the lighthouse, who told Mr. Barrowman to shut up over the German pilot. I'd had him down as being an old curmudgeon, but not anymore. I've never heard that word. Curmudgeon. I've never seen it. I would need to look that one up afterwards. If anybody can put it on their blog as to what it means, then fantastic. And it's page 260 if you want to look it up. He was the man who brought my sister safely home. I stared at Suki. "Where did you find that? Where did they find you?" Suki laughed, her lovely, tinkly laugh. "Oh, adrift in the channel in a rowing boat. They rescued me late last night. It was a stroke of absolute luck. I can't thank these dear chaps enough." It was just how things were with Suki. Even in the middle of the English Channel, she found people willing to help her. This time, though, she'd been the one trying to help others, and she'd risked her life doing it. It was easier and warmer to go straight back to Mrs. Henderson's. She made tea and crumpets and banked up the sitting room fire so quickly it grew stifling. Suki, in borrowed dry clothes, her hair wrapped in a towel, sat as close as she could to the hearth to get warm. We didn't mean to wake everyone, but it wasn't long before Cliff came downstairs. His face was an absolute picture when he saw Suki, throwing his arms around her. He stared at her, speechless. "Can we go to the cinema again?" was the first thing he managed to say. "A proper trip that lasts more than 10 minutes. The next footsteps on the stairs were Mum's. Seeing the chair pulled up on the hearth, she stopped in the doorway. "Hello, Mum." Suki rather sheepishly stood up. "Oh, Suki," Mum said quietly. "You silly, silly girl." I braced myself for the hugs, the kisses, the happy tears. Cliff's favourite bits in films were when long-lost people got reunited. Yet this was real life, concerning people we loved. Mum, though, wasn't smiling. "You weren't well. The doctor told you to rest, didn't he? No work, no stress. That's what he said." Suki tried to explain. "Oh, my darling girl," Mum murmured. "I've been so desperately worried about you." Suki started crying. "I was only trying to help. I knew that you wouldn't want it to let anyone down." When they hugged, it was like watching two people cling to each other for dear life. It was quite overwhelming, and so typical of Mum and Suki, whose love for each other was always the boldest, fiercest kind. Eventually I sat down on the settee. Suki, her feet tucked under her, leaned against Mum. "I've got some explaining to do," Suki admitted, addressing me. "I'm so sorry I left you and Cliff during the air raid. I shouldn't have shouted when you came after me." Knowing what I knew now, it made sense that she had. Me calling Suki at the top of my voice when she was pretending to be Mrs. Arby would have blown her cover. "I ended up with Mum's coat," I told her, "and I found the note that you'd hidden in it, so we managed eventually to work out what you were up to." I could sense her looking at me, really looking, like she was seeing something new. "You clever old stick," she said finally when she made me stupidly pleased. Then she unwrapped the towel from her head and shook out her damp hair. "Good grief," Mum gasped. your beautiful hair. It's so short, Cliff cried. Actually, it wasn't much shorter than mine, but you could see lumps hacked out of it, a haircut done in a hurry. I had to, Suki explained. It was a disguise to get past the soldiers. Cliff looked aghast. I'd never seen a boy with hair like that. Personally, I thought it looked rather daringly glamorous, especially on Suki. Mum ran her hair over it like she was stroking a cat. A prompt to me to stroke a cat. Why do you get yourself into these scrapes, she said, though not unkindly. You didn't even have the good sense to catch the right boat home again. I didn't miss the boat on purpose, Mum, Suki replied. I met someone, and our meeting took longer than expected. You see, the man, Monsieur Bonnet, knew Dad. Mum's hand fell into her lap. How? He was with him at the end. I covered my mouth, but Suki reached my hand and clasped it tightly in hers. I hoped some of her courage would seep into me because I wasn't sure I was ready for what she had to say next. And that is the end of that chapter. Tomorrow is the final chapter. One sip of coffee, and stroke of a cat, and I shall see you tomorrow, same time, same place. Bye-bye.